Connective tissues is our next category of tissues to look through. What we're going to do is look at the main overview or the main features of the connective tissues, and then in future videos move into the actual individual connective tissues. So we'll start with all connective tissues arise from mesenchyme. Now, mesenchyme is going to be an embryonic tissue. It's basically the starting tissue for all the different types of connective tissues. Different connective tissues have different degrees of vascularity. We're going to have some connective tissues, like cartilage, that don't have any blood supply. They're avascular. While other tissues are very rich in blood, and then we actually have blood as a connective tissue. So the blood itself is one of the forms of connective tissue. So variabilities as far as how much vascularity occurs. Extracellular matrix. Now the extracellular matrix is going to be what's around and outside of the cells. So pretty much everything there is beyond the cells. It's non-living, consists of different things like ground substance and fibers, which we need to talk about. The idea here is this is all the other stuff beyond the cells. While the epithelial tissue had a high cellularity, very close cells, connective tissue, for the most part, has more space in between the cells. You have a cell, you have a cell, you have a cell, and space in between. That's this extracellular matrix. And that's also what will help to differentiate the different types of connective tissues, all based on the composition of what the extracellular matrix is. So let's look at some overview of features. Now, this is the whole category. It's not just one single connective tissue, but they all play different roles, different parts here. So the first one up, binding and support. Well, binding and support, you have things like your tendons and ligaments helping hold the bones together. The bones themselves have osseous tissue, which is a supporting structure. So binding and support. Protection. You can look at your blood from being a protective with your white blood cells and immunity, or you can look in your bones, for example. The osseous tissue has a solid matrix, so it's protective from an impact. You then have your storage. You have adipose. Adipose, or fat, is storing nutrients, gives you the lipid storage. You can look at your osseous tissue storing calcium in the bones. Insulation. Well, that one's definitely adipose tissue. Adipose tissue can help to insulate or help to conserve some of your body temperature. And then we have transportation. Transportation, think about the blood. Blood is carrying your nutrients, carrying your gases, getting rid of waste products. So transporting all throughout your body, the blood or the vascular tissue. Now we have three main elements found in your connective tissues. We're going to have the ground substance, fibers, and cells. What we need to do is go through each one of these, ground substance and fibers and cells, to figure out what they are and what their purposes are. Let's start with the ground substance. Ground substance, by definition, is unstructured material that fills the space between cells. That's pretty broad. That gives you a lot of stuff in there. What you're looking at is it helps to build everything, put everything together, and the composition of this ground substance will change from tissue to tissue. But it's functioning as a molecular sieve. Basically, think of a mesh network. Helps to filter things going through. Larger materials take more time to get through, if they can even fit through. Smaller materials, well, they can fit through very quickly. So it's kind of functioning as a sieve, this basis of sorting on size. Nutrients, they diffuse from the blood, no problem. They're small, they're easy to pass and travel through. So it allows your cells to get the nutrients in this way, for example. The ground substance typically is comprised of these three things. You're going to have your interstitial fluid, you're going to have your cell adhesion proteins, and then you have your proteoglycans. Now, one example of a proteoglycan is this glycosaminoglycans. They're basically structural units, helping to give a little bit of structure and stability to some of the tissues. But all three of these things can vary from different tissue to different tissue. The interstitial fluid, well, the makeup of what the ions are can vary. Cell adhesion proteins, the quantity, the numbers, or the types can vary. But this is what you're finding within this ground substance. Fibers, second category. While the fibers are found in the ground substance because they're in between the cells, there's three main types of fibers. First type we have here is the collagen fiber. Collagen fiber is comprised of the protein called collagen. Makes sense. Collagen makes collagen fibers. But these collagen fibers, they are very strong. Great and tough, high tensile strength is what really gives rigidity and strength to your tissues. Think about your skin. The dermis, or the lower layers, are comprised of a lot of collagen. That's what allows the skin to move, but you can't just tear it off. The collagen gives the strength to that layer of your skin. Elastic fibers. Like the name implies, elastic is stretching. It's made of the protein elastin. Elastin makes elastic. These are long, thin fibers. They really allow for a stretch, but then recoil. They're allowed for movement, but they help to maintain the shape of that tissue. So once it moves, it goes back to its original form. So your elastic fibers. Which leaves us with our last fiber type is going to be the reticular fiber. Now, reticular fibers, interestingly enough, are made of collagen again. The difference being now, these are thinner strands of collagen. Because they're thinner, they don't have the same strength as the actual collagen fibers. The reticular fibers are making up more of a delicate network. Perfect example is in the spleen. The spleen is an organ where if you kind of push on it, it's like a wet sponge. You can push it, it indents, pull back, and it pops back up. So it's not rigid, it's not solid, it's not strong. But the spleen has these reticular fibers that help to give it its structure, kind of a gentle framework to it, if you may. So looking at reticular fibers. All right, so we had ground substance, we had fibers, and now we have kind of a mesh of everything together. You can see in this symbolic diagram, the fibers are running throughout. You have your collagen fibers. You're going to have the very thick, strong collagen running there. You're then going to have your elastic fibers, these green kind of ones that are spinning around. They're giving that recoil, that stretch a little bit. You even have this reticular fibers. You can see how they're making this framework up here. So reticular fibers. But they're all in the ground substance, in between the cells. You have cells like macrophages, adipocytes. That's where we're going next. We need to look at the different types of cells and how everything kind of meshes together. The meshing together will be important when we start looking at the next video, when that shows us the individual types of connective tissues. But first, the cells, like I mentioned. Cell-wise, we have fibroblast and fibrocyte. Now, the end of the word, blast and cyte, becomes important. Fibroblast, the blast tells you they are immature. They're forming, they're making the fibers, they're making the ground substance. So fibroblast is making or producing. Fibrocyte, C-Y-T-E, cyte is mature. They're maintaining, they're keeping the tissues healthy. They're monitoring the tissues. So fibrocytes are more the adult cells. And we're going to see other different cells that have this blast and cyte. But fibroblast and fibrocyte, that's just the generic cells across the entire connective tissue. Fibroblast and fibrocytes. Macrophages. Macrophages are phagocytotic. They're going to eat. They're going to destroy. They can help with tissue repair by getting rid of dead cells. They can help with immunity because they can destroy foreign invasions. They eat and destroy whatever is tagged for destruction. Leukocytes. Leukocytes, these are your white blood cells. All in total, there's actually 5 different types of white blood cells. We're not getting into that right now. That's more AP2. Just know that leukocytes are white blood cells. Plasma cells. Now, plasma cells are a specialized form of one particular white blood cell. The reason they're important, these plasma cells produce antibodies. Antibodies can detect foreign particles. Your entire immune response when you get sick is based on antibodies being made to recognize the foreign particles. Mast cells. Mast cells are secreting heparin. So we're secretion of heparin here to kind of make sure things aren't clotting up. So mast cells. And adipocytes. There's that CYTE. This is an adipocyte is a fat cell. It's the specialized cell type of adipose, which is a type of tissue. So adipocyte, a fat-filled cell, basically lipid-filled cell. Adipocyte. And then hematopoietic stem cells. Hematopoietic stem cells are what produce your blood cells. They are the cells that can differentiate out and produce the different blood cells. So hematopoietic stem cells. Come back to those more in AP2 in the vascular chapter when you get to blood. So that's the overview, the basis of what connective tissues are. Next step is moving into the specifics. Look at the individual types of connective tissues, where you find them, what they do, how to recognize them, the different types of connective tissues.